I am seeing here familiar names. We're very happy to meet you again. This is our panel discussion, and our presentation is titled Data Collection Methods Through Online Modalities. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-panelists and myself. Let me begin with Dr. Pavel Sobkov. He is an assistant professor of the Applied Theology Department of the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies, Philippines. He teaches applied theology research and writing and serves as a seminary methodologist. Among his recent presentations are qualitative research projects entitled Faith Experience of African Students in Secular Universities in Russia, a Narrative Inquiry, and another one is titled Apostle Paul's Writings Through the Eyes of Muslim Background Believers, a Case Study. I'm proud to present to you Dr. Pavel Sobkov. He is the Chief Operating Officer of AQRA. AQRA stands for Asian Qualitative Research Association, and our team represents AQRA. The next one that I will introduce is Dr. Safary Wa-Mbaleka. He is the director of the Adventist University of Africa Online. He is an author of several qualitative research books and articles accessible at www.myresearchcorner.com. He has delivered keynote and plenary presentations at several international conferences in more than 20 countries, including once that was last year at the World Conference on Qualitative Research. He has provided several dozens of qualitative research trainings and talks over the past 7 years, mainly in the Philippines and few times in other countries. Again, I am very proud to present to you Dr. Safary. He is the founding president of AQRA. And I will introduce myself. I am Arceli Rosario. I'm chair of the education department of the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies. And presently, I am the president of AQRA. So the order of our presentation is this. First, Dr. Safary will give the introduction, and that will be followed by his presentation on online in-depth interview. Then Dr. Zubkov will present online focus group discussion. Again, Dr. Safary will come back to present online observation. The last will be other data, online data collection methods by myself. I now give the time to Dr. Safary.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arceli. Greetings, everyone from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm very, very delighted to be back with many of you, probably who have attended the last two conferences. I have attended both, one in Lisbon, that was 2 years ago, and last year in Porto. We had a wonderful time in both conferences, and that's the reason why I keep coming back, because this is a great learning opportunity for qualitative research. Allow me to introduce quickly what we'll be talking about today, this evening, for those who are in the eastern side of the world. Looking at what is happening around, we see the pandemic that has hit everywhere in the world. This is the first time, I think, for most of us since we were born, that we are dealing with the same issue at the same time at a very high scale. The economy, the education, research, and other services have been actually affected negatively. Each one of us who are listening on this platform, we can definitely relate to that. That there's been a lot of travel bans, and this has actually affected us in traveling to research site, for example, or if we want to still travel to conduct research. This has come with several challenging logistic issues. we have the social distancing issue that is also there. If we manage to go to the research site, we see ourselves struggling to keep that social distance while we're trying to collect data. And so this provides an opportunity for us to think about new ways to deal with the data collection. And today we are talking about the online modality of data collection. We're talking about online communication tools that we can use to collect data online. And we're going to talk about many different methods. The three of us, we are talking about many different methods. So the question that we probably all are asking ourselves, and that's probably the reason why we are here, is shall researchers stop conducting research studies because of the challenging times? Well, the answer, I think you know, is no. And in fact, it's because of this pandemic, the way it is destroying lives so much, we actually need to do even more research to understand how the pandemic is affecting people, not just the health aspect, but all the aspects of human life, especially the social life, the human life. So today we're going to have 4 major presentations, and after that we're going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to start by the online in-depth interview. And after that, Dr. Pavel will come to talk about online focus group discussions. How do you conduct that online? And then from there, I'll come back for online observations. And after that, Dr. Arceli will come in to talk about a lot of variety of online qualitative data methods. So let's talk about online in-depth interview. I think this is one of my favorite ones because I have conducted a lot of interviews, especially face-to-face, and now I'm learning how to do it online. And I think I should make a disclaimer that I have not really done a lot. I have done a few online in-depth interview. And so I took this, just like my colleagues, we took this as a challenge for ourselves to learn and open this to discussion so that we can continue learning from each one of you. So what is online in-depth interview? Well, it is called sometimes e-interview or internet-mediated interview. It is an in-depth interview, this is my definition, conducted using information and communication technology. So the moment we use information and communication technology, we are dealing with an in-depth, online in-depth interview. Why do we need it? Well, it is very well established that interviewing is probably the most common form of data collection because it provides rich data, it provides a direct interaction when we are conducting it. And today with social distancing and the efficiency that comes with online interviews, cost effectiveness, and even flexibility for people to actually participate in our in-depth interviews, it makes it very attractive, not just for the pandemic period, but even beyond that time. We can now use a variety of technology, and sometimes when we have sensitive issues or complex issues where people don't want to talk to people face to face, in a shared physical space, they may feel a little bit more comfortable participating in an online in-depth interview. So what are the different types that we find out there? There are many different classifications, but let's look at online in-depth interviews from 3 levels: the structure, the delivery, and the medium. On the structure, we have the traditional classification that we have seen, where we have structured interviews, semi-structured interviews, and unstructured interviews. And this is something that we do face-to-face, but also online. It doesn't change when we get online. On the delivery, we have synchronous interviews and asynchronous interviews. Synchronous being those live interviews where you are actually talking to each other, the researcher and the participant, while asynchronous interviews are some of those where you may send the questions, email them to somebody, and ask them to actually write the answers and send the answers to you. On the other part of the synchronous interviews, it may actually be chat, where people are not actually talking, but they are chatting live. That will also count as synchronous interview, but in that case, it's written interview, and that is the other distinction here. We have oral interviews where we use the voice, and written interviews. So how do we prepare for online in-depth interviews? First, we need to know the reason why we want to conduct the interview online instead of face-to-face setting. Is the selected technology user-friendly? Is it secure? Is it affordable? Can you and the participant use it very easily? The other one is trustworthiness. What will I do to ensure trustworthiness online? It doesn't mean that when we go online, we just forget about trustworthiness. We need to keep up with that. And how about ethics? What are the ethical issues that we need to keep in mind? We're going to talk about this in a minute. And then we think about the technology. What technology will I need to conduct my interviews online? And the media, do I need videos? Do I need audios and or text, or do I need a combination? And why do I need that type of media in my interview? So looking at conducting an online in-depth interview, first of all, we need to have an interview protocol, just like face-to-face, especially if we are going to do semi-structured interviews, which are the most preferred type of interviews, where you have your interview guide that you will eventually follow as you collect your data, as you conduct your interview. We need to validate it, just like we do in the traditional interview, where we send it to 2-3 experts on the topic and in the qualitative research to look at the flow and the content to make sure that the interview is well organized and it is actually fit for the research questions, the research problem. The selection of the ICT tools. What tools will I actually use? We need to have to select them clearly. And the article we were working on for this panel discussion has more information on that. We're not going to go into details. The recruitment and the selection of participants. How are we going to recruit them, knowing that we can never meet them face to face? Actually, the good thing with this is that now we can recruit people without geographic limitations. We need to get the informed consent, whether it's written or oral, depending on the setting. We need to work on the scheduling, making sure that everybody is comfortable with that, both the researcher and the participant. We need then to conduct the actual interview and have follow-up interviews when it is necessary. What are the challenges that we'll find out there? The first challenge is a technical or technology challenge. You may have technical issues, especially there's a tendency that the more we age, the more challenging the technology has the tendency to become. You will all remember when we were probably in our teens, when we were still teens, maybe early 20s, we didn't understand why people who were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s were struggling. And as you go beyond these years, and now I can look back and say, it is catching up on some of us, where any technology, we really want to have clear instructions. So we may run into technical issues. We may, and these may actually distract us. And sometimes we may have limited technology access for both the researcher and the participant. And so we need to think very well ahead. Let's not get complicated technology. Let's get something that is user-friendly. The next one is methods. This can be a challenge in building the rapport between the participants, the prospective participants, and the researcher. And so one of the things that you may want to deal with is to come up with creative ways to to create it, to build this rapport, so that by the time you get the interview, at the beginning, you continue building that rapport, but by the time you get in the actual interview, the person is already comfortable to actually participate actively in the interview. The next one is privacy and confidentiality. We need to think ahead about any concerns specific to online settings. We're going to talk about this in the other sections of this panel discussion, but we need to think from the online perspective, because now it's no longer just face-to-face, it's online. What is out there that we can use without asking permission? Can we record the people? If we have to record their voice or their video, what kind of things need to be in place? These are all things that we need to keep in mind. And then the quality, given that you may have limited nonverbal clues in your interviews, how do you make sure that you have high quality? And if you have asynchronous interviews, sometimes you may have limited data. And this I have experienced it myself when I sent the questions to people, participants, and they, something that they would have spent probably 5-10 minutes and produced several paragraphs if I was interviewing them live, they write just one paragraph to address the question. And so you find that you have limited data that is coming up. So what are the final practical strategies that I want to leave with you before I ask Dr. Pavel to come in? Two sides on the methods, please be culturally sensitive and be aware of the power struggle that may be between you and the participant. They may be shy because you are very, very high up there. Remember to build rapport before and right before the interview, so that the people be comfortable to share, so that you get rich data. You need to sharpen your interview skills, asking the right questions, asking them clearly, listening carefully, and managing the whole interview well so that you are on time, you're getting all the data that you need. You need to be aware of the emotional problems or emotional trauma. And if ever it starts, you need to stop or go to another topic so that the person doesn't feel like they have to complete what is happening. And of course, you need to find a counselor if it becomes really, really bad, who will try to give therapy to the participant. The next one is the technology. You need to know the technology that you are using. You need to get some kind of tutorial or guidance or training to the participant if they do not know how to use the technology you are asking for. You need to select technology that is user-friendly so that you don't struggle and the participant doesn't struggle. And always, always remember to have a plan B, because technology will always fail when you least expect it. I remember conducting face-to-face interviews once, and I was recording on my iPhone and my computer. When I got home, I was done. This was a focus group discussion. I had collected rich data, and I started playing back on my computer, and everything was blank. Everything was blank. And so the good thing, when I went to the iPhone, I was sweating already, but when I went to the iPhone, I found that everything was there. And so I was able to save my day. We can never be too safe when we are dealing with technology. So the bottom line, here's the bottom line. We need good preparation before we conduct our online in-depth interviews. We need the preparation in the content. We need to know what we're talking about, what we're asking for, and we need to know the gaps that exist in the literature so that as we conduct the interviews, we are trying to cover those gaps. Number two, we need to sharpen our interview skills. If we have not conducted interview skills, let's read about that. And maybe if I have not checked if there are some sample interviews online on YouTube, I don't know, maybe there are. If there are, you can even watch some of those to see how people did that. But One of the ways you can actually do this is to watch TV. When the reporters are interviewing people, most of them do quite a good job in the interview skills. The last one is technology. We need to prepare well. We need to have a plan B. We need to learn how to use the technology, not only us, but also the research participants themselves. Because if we do not, we are either going to lose our data or not capture the data or struggle and be distracted during the online interviews. Now I'm going to give time to Dr. Pavel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Safary. It was interesting. I will naturally continue talking about group interview. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay, here it is. A group depth interview or a focus group is one of the most widely used and employed method in empirical research. It is especially useful for exploring new topics, for generating new ideas, for brainstorming. And just yesterday, we had online data collection as an option, but it seems that today it is no longer an option, but actually the only way of data collection. And so we explore the new ways how to conduct, how to collect data online. Focus group is, it takes a group. And there are certain challenges how to get a group together in times such as this, as today. And so when we look at the alternative to collect data online, what are the advantages or disadvantages that we have when we talk about focus group? Let's explore some of it. First of all, online focus group, it has one big priority over face-to-face group. It has always been a challenge in face-to-face or say traditional way of focus group to get people together. It takes time, it takes logistics, it takes efforts to to bring them all in one venue, and it was always challenging. Now we can easily surpass geographical and temporal limitations with online focus group. We can have participants and recruit participants from literally all around the globe. We may have more opportunities now to get the group as we had before. We may have more variety of data than we had before. It includes text data, voice or video, not counting other ways of data that we will explore in this presentation later on. It appears to be more effective in discussing sensitive topics as compared to a traditional in-person focus group discussion. It also gives us the opportunity to collect some artifacts that we may not be able to collect otherwise. As we conducted one of the focus groups recently, I found myself, surprised to see how my participants can share with me some artifacts such as PowerPoints, ideas, pictures, whatever they have, and they may prove the point or they support their argument. So it is more rich in data sources. It provides a less threatening and more relaxed atmosphere to the participants. As participants, they stay within the comforts of their house. They may be more relaxed in terms of their appearance, and overall the discussion may go more smooth. It is more convenient for a researcher to facilitate. What I mean, it takes less formal approach to organize a discussion, to the point that participants even don't see your notes that you can put around the screen and you can use while facilitating the interview. Yet there are some challenges. It is more difficult to manage, especially the process of turn taking, so that everyone would be given a voice. It requires certain level of computer literacy, and the researchers and moderators' role is more crucial in online data collection. We'll talk more about it. And I just want to submit this statement. Online focus group enables the researcher to gain a deeper perspective about the degree and quality of interaction, engagement, and non-verbal activity among participants. Before we were always thinking that this is the advantage of face-to-face focus group, that we may see the posture, we may see non-verbal data. Now with the teleconferencing technologies, we may have it all. We may not lose it necessarily as we may think. There are two basic approaches, two types of online focus group. It can be synchronous and asynchronous, or it is also called as a bulletin board. Well, both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. It all depends on what are you going to collect, what is the purpose of your research, and also what is the composition of your participants group, whether they can be connecting within the same time or they come from the different time zones. It is then more convenient for them to be asynchronously gathered as a posting in a bulletin board. The synchronous way is more fit for the discussion, for spontaneous conversation, for follow-up questions. In a synchronous way, the participants will share their ideas by allowing this time lag between the responses, and also they will use text only. And the good thing that the researcher may go back and he may or she may find something more. So they may just ask more questions and ask for a deeper meaning of what they posted. So it allows more reflexivity. And also it saves your time when it comes to data transfer. What are the requirements for successful synchronous online focus group? There are few. Let's remember about technical skills and equipment. At least a medium level of technical proficiency in this case is expected. However, I noticed that in my experience, those who are not proficient in, let's say, elderly people, they may not know how to use these technologies, but the younger family members may assist them, and they may just stay by, and they may be there to help. So it can be easily addressed. There are some logistical requirements, which what platforms to use for teleconferencing, what devices to use, and what would be the internet connection. In this article, just recent article, Qualitative Data Collection in the Era of Social Distancing, Loeb, etc., they just have an overview of different platforms, how they are different from each other, what is the advantages and disadvantages of each of them. The participants should find a quiet venue. Sometimes the voice is overlapping with some other members, family members who are passing by. So the prior communication with the participants is very important, and even a short pre-session is advisable. When we can explain everything, we can connect and we can check the sound, we can check the video, we may give some basic instructions in technology, using technology. Another thing to consider is how many participants you would have. Well, as compared to traditional way, we rather have less because it will be more difficult to manage. So the researchers, the qualitative research writers, they suggest 3 to 5 participants at most to have the conversation smooth and have each of them giving them voice. The researcher's role is more important and more crucial in online focus group. It depends on the researcher how the discussion will be engaging, how it will be meaningful. And we need to have this, I like this term, this phrase, rigid flexibility. This is the idea of maintaining a clear and very unwavering goal in research with a willingness to be flexible in how it is reached. And it also is important to have a meaningful interaction during this discussion to make sure that everyone is given the opportunity to speak. And the names in online platform help to refer to each participant by name, which is very important. This is one of my focus group present. What are the ethical considerations in online focus group? There are also few to remember. First of all, it is difficult sometimes to differentiate between public and private space in internet. That's a different world, and we need to be conscious about it. The informed consent should be taken care of in advance. We can send it by email and receive the response before the study, which we will document. If for some reasons it was not possible, we may also seek for verbal consent, which may be an option, although it's not the best option. Again, this is the issue of documenting our research. Withdrawal may be even easier online, that everyone should be given the opportunity to withdraw from study. Privacy, confidentiality, and anonymity is also an issue. We need to provide a password-based access to our video sessions. Also, we need to take care of preventing any linkage between the participant and email addresses. It can be done, we need just to have some settings done to prevent that. Sometimes the home background is also recorded, and that might also violate some privacy rules. So we may just ask and assist our participants to install a virtual background so they will not record whichever is at the back of them in the house. At the same time, the participants themselves, they may break some ethical rules when they just record the session for whatever purposes on their devices without even asking or reporting. In this case, we need to make a disclaimer in the beginning that focus group discussion, it is not We cannot guarantee anonymity and confidentiality as it goes beyond the researcher's capability to control it. Data storage should be done in password protected files, and there are many different other different ethical considerations depending on the country. Finally, in conclusion, an online focus group provides a valuable opportunity to still reach participants and collect meaningful data in the era of social distancing. It offers a safer way to express and discuss personal experience and as compared to face-to-face group. And to facilitate an effective group online, it is highly advisable to give ample time for prior communication with the participants to secure technical and other areas to be prepared in advance. And although seemingly challenging, an online focus group is worth trying. Thank you. So I'm stopping sharing. Dr. Arceli,
yes.
sorry, Dr. Safary, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Pavel. And now this is Dr. Safary's time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pavel, for that presentation. As you can see, they are directly interconnected. And what I'll be talking about now is the online observation. And this is definitely something that is directly connected to the next section that Dr. Arceli will be talking about. And I will, at the end of this section, I will try to link back to what Dr. Pavel has just talked about. And that is online observation. I think some of the questions we may ask ourselves, can we do observations online? And if so, how will we do it? How will we get rich data through online observation? And will we be able to see interactions between and among our participants? Will we be able to interact with them, and what challenges are involved? What are the limitations that we need to address or acknowledge? Are there specific ethical issues that arise when we're conducting online observations? The answer is that there is no ultimate answer yet. And even in the literature, as I was looking at the literature, there are many different things going on. And in fact, at the end, I'm going to propose things that are not too much discussed in the literature yet. So let's get started with the types of observations. We have two types that we know. These have been documented in many different qualitative research books and articles: the participant observation and an obstructive observation. The participant observation, we deal with the active researcher, the engaged researcher. The open observation is involved, and the researcher is directly involved in the observation. In here, we're talking about observation in general. So this would be participant observation, while in an obstructive observation, it is usually a covert interview, observation, sorry, not interview, and a passive observation, I apologize for that. It's usually common in public places, and the researcher is there usually as a bystander, who does not actively play any role. I like this typology that is given by Sammons. By the way, Sammons has given a lot of information on online data collection. The different types that we're talking about, actually, Sammons talked about them. She's been publishing a lot. Even recently, she has another new book. So she classifies into 4: extant, elicited, and enacted observation. And there is a difference, and here she is presenting the different roles that you play when you are dealing with these different types of observations. But in the role, she makes it clear that it's more of a continuum than a rigid way of doing things. It's much more of a continuum. And when we are dealing with this, we need to look at it from that perspective. I like another typology that was given, where we look at the complete observer, 4 different types. the complete observer, and I'm going to read here because they said it in such a good way that it's good to read it. Finally, the complete observer avoids influencing the observed activities, keeping a distance to the observed interactions, thus approximating the traditional idea of the objective observer. So if you observe online, whether it's face-to-face or online, and you are completely quiet in your observation, you are a complete observer, according to these two authors. But you can have observer as a participant, where the observer is a participant assumes the role of an observer through social interaction with the informants, but does not pretend to be an actual group member. So you see, that's a different level. While the next one is a complete participant, where the participant assumes an investigative role by becoming a full member of the observed group without revealing his or her own identity. And yes, there is an ethical question on this one. Should people be allowed to do this, where they become part of the team and they are working like FBI because nobody knows that they are actually part of the study? This has, some will say yes, others say no, and I know each one of you have their stand. And the last one is participant as observer, where the participant conducts the observations while acting as a full group member, but lets the subjects or the informants know that they are under observation. So this is another typology, and it is up to us, to each one of us, to decide which one calls our attention. In participant observation, the researchers collect posted but not personally identifiable information, or look for patterns in such posts on websites, on blogs, or social media sites, or in discussion group interactions, and the list goes on. So all these places, we can actually collect the data and looking at what is already there. While in obstructive observation, the researchers collect posted but not personally identifiable information, or look for patterns such posts on the websites, blogs, or social media sites, or in discussion group interactions that is already there. What are the challenges that we face? The first one is informed consent. How should we secure the informed consent, especially when we are dealing with observations online for things that are already in a place where we are not generating that? Then the other one is the domain. When should we procure permission, secure permission? What do we consider as public domain, and what do we consider as private domain? Things like YouTube, for example, that's known as a public domain. Maybe we don't have to think hard about that. But how about the video clips that you got from your friend's Facebook group? I mean, on Facebook, or you happen to have a Facebook group that people have to be allowed to enter that. Simply because you all belong together, you are part of the same group, and you are 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. Should you not get the permission first? So all these are questions that are still out there on privacy and confidentiality. Confidentiality, is everything in public domain automatically free from the need for informed consent? And the last one, trustworthiness. How do we select what we are going to observe? How much of it should we collect? And what is the quality that we are getting out of there? How can we trust what people have posted if we are doing observations of things that have been already posted online? So the bottom line here on ethical issues, Willis says that we need to consider, one of the major things we need to consider, the levels of publicness. There are some things that are completely in the public domain, and I gave you the example of YouTube. We have some where they are the accessibility is only for few users. For example, when you have groups, Facebook groups, or things like that, you have a level of, although it's still like public, but it's not everybody who can access that information. And then we have things that are full accessibility in a research group, where you actually tell the whole group that I'm conducting a study here, and I just want you to know that I will be doing this and this and this and this, so that everybody is aware. And maybe those who don't want, they may get out for some time. So here are the recommendations as I wrap up this part. My recommendations, which is not yet that much discussed in the literature, is to actually have the online observation data production. And I think this is what many of us are expecting from observations, and also to deal with the online observation data collection, the collection and the production. How do I distinguish this? Actually, I talk about this in one of my books. In the online observation data production, we can have the researcher as a live observer of an event or activity, where you are actually part of the study, and you have maybe, you are observing a classroom, you are observing a meeting, you are observing an event that is ongoing and it's live, and you are able to actually communicate with the people there. The other one is participant as a live observer of an event or activity, where maybe you as a researcher, you cannot access that, you are not allowed to attend the group meeting or event or activity, but the participant has the ability to do that, and then they can write down the notes. The other one is the researcher as an observer of a pre-recorded event or activity, where the people will actually watch and get the data from there that they give you. And the researcher as an observer of, the participant, sorry, of an observer of a pre-recorded event, where the participants themselves, the previous one is the researcher, and the other one is the participant themselves who will be doing that. At this point, I'm going to go back to Dr. Arceli to help us with the last section, and then we'll have the open discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Pavel, Dr. Safary. This one now is other online data collection methods. And I'm going to talk about two data collection methods here. Number one is arts-based data, and then internet-based data. So let's start with arts-based data. There are three types when we talk about arts-based. One is when we say art in research, art as research, art about research. The one that we are referring to in this presentation is art in research. And what does that mean? When we say art in research, we refer to this approach as it is a research method or a dissemination technique, and the researchers are involved in the process of art making and or guiding the research participants. There are 5 categories. One is literary, the other is performative, and I'm thinking of what Dr. Safary referred to, quoting Salmons, that this is like enacted. The other one is visual, new media, folk art, and popular art forms. So when there's another term, this one is aesthetic portrayal, and this was introduced by Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, the term aesthetic portrayal. She says that this is a way in which the participants represent their realities through artistic expressions. And there are several ways, such as writing a poem, or taking pictures, or producing videos, metaphor, collage, drawing, etc. Maybe one important question that we have to answer when we say art in research. So what is the data in art in research? The data here is not the art itself. It is the explanation or the description behind the art. What is the art all about? So the concern is not how good is the art done. It's not about that. It is the meaning behind the art that is done. Here are some examples, a few. There are so many that have already been done using arts-based data. I'm sharing with here a few. For example, we have here by Bisco. He did narrative inquiry and he used the term aesthetic portrayal, and his participants did several things. One did a collage, another did a drawing, etc. And I will show you these handmade chocolates. Also, I did a study with my student, and also we used the term aesthetic portrayal. We were doing portraiture, and one of our participants did poetry, another painting, photos, etc. Here's a meta-analysis of 116 articles of studies done with children 7 to 6 years old. And many of the participants did drawings, photographs, graphics, and artifacts. Another meta-study of 72 articles done in health, and the participants did photos, theater, drawing, film, video, poetry, dance. There's a study done with children and youth affected by war, and the participants did mask and drawing. And here's another one by Cohen Miller, and she did transcendental phenomenology, and her participants did drawings. She specifically asked them to do drawings to represent their realities as graduate student mothers. Here's an example of an aesthetic portrayal. And so Besco asked his participants to represent their realities as teachers, elementary and high school teachers. And one of his participants made these chocolates and gave this box to him and asked him to eat. And after he ate, he said, the participant said, "Now you have something from me in you. This is what I want for my students. I want them to take something from me, something that will be useful for the rest of their lives." Here's another example of an aesthetic portrayal. So the participant here did a drawing. If you see, these are flowers, but this actually is a picture of a woman. Our study here is about graduate student mothers, and accompanying this drawing is a poem which the participant also did. Here's an example also of drawing in the study conducted by Cohen Miller, again with graduate student mothers. So you see there's a drawing here, and there is a description or an explanation what this drawing is all about. Here's another example, found poetry. Again, this is a study, the same study on graduate student mothers I did with my student. This is called found poetry because we put together recurring words and phrases that we found in the transcripts of the interviews. We put them together and we formed a poetry. Now, how do we collect arts-based data online? Is it hard? Is it easy? Is it doable? So there are several tips here. I will share with you 12. One is decide on a platform for your research team. There are many platforms, but my team, we are conducting a study on institutional narratives, and we are using base camps. And I'm showing you that we find this suitable for our needs, because here we have a message board where we share our thread of discussions. We also have our to-dos. What are the things that we do with our schedules? Here's also a section here for our docs and files. And the other one is choose also a platform where your participants can upload their data and where you can send instruction schedules and reminders. Here's an example. In my case, my team and I are using Moodle. Why we use this? Because we found out that there's a platform where everybody can access to the announcements, instructions, and schedules and other documents that we post that is for everyone. And yet it has also a feature where our participants can upload their data, and their data cannot be seen by the other participants. So that's why we chose Moodle, especially with data that should not be seen by the other participants. Number 3 is decide on a platform for virtual meetings. And we suggest that you use various modalities so that, for example, you are doing Zoom meeting and the participant is not yet there, and you can call mobile phone or you can call WhatsApp. And so there's a high likelihood that your virtual meeting can really happen. Provide training on how to use the different platforms. My colleagues said a while ago that these platforms should be easy and something that even the disadvantaged, like those who are not really technology ready, can easily learn these platforms. Number 5, if one of the data collection methods is taking pictures, then provide the participants training on photography and also on ethical issues. Number 6, at the start of the study, if you are doing a community participatory action research, then you can meet all the participants together at one time. But when you are dealing with sensitive topics, we suggest that you conduct a separate virtual meeting for every participant. And during this time, this is the orientation time, and you discuss about purpose of the study, expectations, duration, etc. Number 7, provide a platform for synchronous or asynchronous conversation. You can choose a forum. It can be a messenger chat or others. Number 8, hold regular virtual meetings with every participant or group of participants. Number 9, provide prompts or questions that your participants are to focus on when creating their art. And number 10, discuss instructions during virtual meetings, upload in written form, and also audio and video recordings in selected online platforms. I'm showing here a sample. How do you really give detailed instruction? And this one I got from Cohen Miller, how she instructed her participants how to draw according to the different phases of their lives. She was doing transcendental phenomenology. Here's another example of a detailed instruction of an aesthetic portrayal. Number 11 here is set an appropriate time, amount of time for each activity. You see, when you gather arts-based data, it's not a one-time engagement. It's not even a two-time engagement. You can engage with yourself, with your participants several times, maybe 3 times or more. Hence, there should be an appropriate amount of time. Follow up with interviews or focus group discussions. Now, there are challenges when we are doing arts-based data. We have here, like, for example, lack of bodily presence, lack of competence, no device, and it's too time consuming. And I would like to focus here, what if your participant does not have a device? And I take on Nind and his colleagues, for example, talk about democratization, or how do we give chance to everyone who can be benefited but are disadvantaged. I mean, benefited by participating in the research but are disadvantaged. And I take from what Wang and Boris did when they pioneered photo voice. You know what they did? They provided cameras to their participants. In the same note, I would like to encourage that we can provide funds to our participants to secure needed device and even for internet connections. Now, there are several ethical considerations, but here again, I focus on fairness, and that is no group should be systematically excluded from research that might benefit them. The other type of data collection here is internet-based data. So what is internet-based data? There are several types. We can get text or textual data from the internet. We can also get visual data, and we can get them from, now there are so many platforms. We have message boards and forums, blogs, websites, even emails, and messenger chats, YouTube, Facebook, etc. And so gathering internet-based data is fraught with many ethical issues. So there are groups that can provide us guidance, and there are some examples here, like for example, the Association of Internet Researchers, the British Educational Research Association, and some others. So where can we get guidance? From ethics bodies, another also from researchers, and I'm showing here some names and the studies that they have done, the works that they have done. For example, this is quite an old article, 2002, but I have found this really very helpful. Kosinets also, who has been doing nethnography. This is a design where the data is from the internet. You can read his works. He has provided their ethical guidance. And also, I'm happy Melanie Nind is here. I would like to encourage you also to read their works on methodological innovation. Arts-based data is one of those, and methodological innovation and research ethics. There are many actually. I would like to share with you only 3 ethical concerns. One is confidentiality. I got this one from Battles. What this researcher did was, the advice is do not name the website or group, do not use names or usernames, and do not use verbatim quotes. Now, I was wondering why that is so. And the reason for this is because now with available search engines, these verbatim quotes can be searched and the participant can be identified. So we are advised not to use verbatim quotes. Also the issue about informed consent. So the advice is obtain permission from the administrative team of the website, and also read, sometimes there are specifications there and policies. Also the advice is send notice to each of the participants. Now there's another issue on public space versus private space, but here's an advice from S: the greater the acknowledged publicity of the venue, the less obligation there may be to protect individual privacy, confidentiality, and right to informed consent. So our concluding thoughts as a team, we would like to say that there are many strategies that researchers can employ to effectively collect data online, and that doing online data collection ethically is challenging. Hence, we invite our fellow researchers to continue this conversation, how we can do this methodologically right and also ethically sound. Online data collection methods is relevant not only in the context of the pandemic, but in other contexts as well. So I hope we don't say like, okay, maybe this situation will ease and we can go back to normal. And maybe we'll say we don't feel the need of really learning the online data collection methods, but there are other contexts that we can use online data collection methods. Thank you so much for this time of conversation. Now, this one is the best part. And this is now the question and answer. And I am acting as the moderator of our group. So I have the privilege of asking my colleagues, Dr. Safary and Dr. Pavel, some questions. I would like to start with, I think let's begin with Dr. Pavel. You mentioned about turn taking in focus group discussion, and I'm imagining that when we do this, you know, face to face, it's quite easy. You can easily detect like who wants to talk. And even the other members of the focus group can also see that. So what do you do to avoid overlapping participants, like talking while the others are still talking, or them talking at the same time?
Thank you, Dr. Arceli. Actually, one of the advices I mentioned is that the number of participants should be less. E5 plus researcher, maybe the assistant also, and that's it. It is not a big issue. I tried it, and we did several focus groups online, and I didn't remember experiencing some problem with this. Normally, the participants, they take, they initiate themselves. We can see who wants to talk. And normally it's like around, they just, you know, take turns by themselves. Sometimes you may ask, okay, referring to the name, okay, you and you may not, you may want to speak something, or you may add want to add something to this. So sometimes, yes, I had to invoke the participants' reaction, but in many cases, people are talking, and they are just taking turns by, you know, using common sense. Who is after whom? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
May I just add something to that?
Oh yes, of course. Go ahead.
They just wanted to not to interrupt, but they write in the chat box. But for the discussion, no, we didn't use it. But you know, maybe although if it is a small group, they might not be a need for a chat. If it is, the group is bigger, then it makes sense. You know, to have some complementary way of interacting.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I agree with Dr. Pavel on that. I agree with him that if it's the group is big, actually this would be the best way to do the focus group discussion. It has to be asynchronous, where you ask the questions, and you may even have one question maybe every day. The following day it's another question, or something like that, or ask all of them together. But if they are asked together, you need to make sure that there is a way where everybody will be able to address each question. Otherwise, you may have some questions. The first ones will be addressed and the rest of them will not be addressed. But the good thing of asynchronous focus group discussion is that everyone will have that flexibility of time to actually put the input in. You can even use things like the platforms that are already being used for education, like the Moodle and all these educational platforms, where we just post it, and just like a forum discussion, online forum discussion for a class, you just use it for discussion, and they will be able to learn, get a lot from, share a lot from there.
I think that's a very great idea. I have not even thought about that, but that forum there in Moodle, I think is just perfect, right? We can have even that single simple discussion where you see the flow of the conversation. Dr. Costa, would you like to have a follow-up question on to your question? Dr. Costa?
Thank you so much. Not really that much, because these are new times that demand new ways of doing it. And I'm looking at the traditional methods of, for instance, where we wanted to observe participants, and when you ask a particular question and then you look at them and you look at their responses, so that you can actually learn a lot, even besides the words that they give. But I realize without using platforms like Zoom, for instance, or where we see face-to-face, and the one that we use, like the asynchronous on the chat groups and all that, we miss the opportunity to get those, those non-verbal cues that could actually urge to us, particularly when we make conclusions about what we saw during the interviews.
Mm-hmm. And therefore, you are saying that our data may be inadequate. And so the question can be, how do we then enrich our data? Because we are missing some, forms of data here. What we hear, what we get in the online focus group is, can be, the words that they say, but we do not see the person in the whole context. So maybe the question is, how then can we complement?
Certainly.
So, yes. So anyone?
Just before we go, Dr. Arceli, and yes, I was just thinking that as scholars and researchers, I think it's also incumbent upon us that now that we are moving towards the 4IR and in the digital transformation already, we need to be investigating other tools that can actually take our qualitative research forward. And I know, for instance, where I am in Africa, and Professor Safary can say, we've got problems, for instance, with broadband and all that. But I do believe it's incumbent upon us, because DX is actually all over the world. And as scholars, as researchers, we need to be also investigating using technologies. For instance, if you look at Facebook on its own, Facebook already has got this live functionality that seems to be working in the remote of the remotest areas. I'm just saying that I think we need to investigate such opportunities as well, because we're not going back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So it's like we have two ideas here, but I want to add something to what Dr. Costa mentioned, and it's about additional demands on researchers. Dr. Safary kept on emphasizing that we should develop interview skills, but on top of that, now we have to develop also technology skills, right? Yes. And it's not only about like using your mobile phone, it's not only even answering your emails, it's not only this, but learning. For example, we mentioned Moodle, I mentioned Basecamp, and so Dr. Costa, aren't we now feeling so overwhelmed? We are learning new ways to gather data, and with these are other skills as well. But thank you. And so let's go back to that question. How do we enhance or complement our data, acknowledging that online data collection, specifically, for example, focus group has its limitations?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Dr. Pavel, would you like to answer first?
We need to try it first, to try it by experience, empirically. Mm-hmm. When you try, we can feel what we can enhance, what we can improve. And I believe in practice makes perfect. We can start and we can see what are the ways, and observe yourself mm-hmm. and see how you are doing as a researcher. What makes you comfortable or not comfortable. In my experience, I felt myself comfortable with two researchers, actually, because I had my student who was co-researching with me, and he was the one to do some observational notes. He was posting questions in the chat box while I was conversing with people live. And we took turns. You know, I asked one question and he asked another question. So it's good when we are together. I think that is good if for online, yes, especially for novice researchers.
Thank you. I think that's a very important point that you have mentioned, that you are not doing the moderating alone, that you have somebody with you who is helping you with other tasks such as note-taking and maybe ensuring that everything is being recorded. Dr. Safary, would you like to add something?
I just want to add two words, with the first one being diversity. And so for the diversity, we need to diversify things that we are doing, use the different methods, and that's part of qualitative research. So diversity is a key. The second one is creativity. We need to be creative, because from what we have shared with the audience here, you know, there are so many opportunities and so many methods that can be used. And so it's up to us to be creative. Most likely there are so many others that we haven't mentioned. So we need to be creative. It's also another factor or concept that we emphasize in qualitative research.
Yeah, I think what we want to say here, while we talk about online interview, online observation, online focus group, arts-based and internet-based, we are not saying that you do only online interview or you do only online focus group. We would like even to encourage us doing a combination of this one, so that what you miss in one method can be supplemented with the other method. I would like to take the opportunity that Dr. Melanie Nind is here with us. If you remember, I cited her work regarding on ethics of some ethical practices when doing arts-based data. Actually, the term they use is methodological innovations. Dr. Melanie, would you like to share something from your work?
Sorry, just trying to find the unmute button. I'll find the camera as well.
And you will show yourself. Oh, so happy to see you.
Yes, it's nice to see everybody as well. And I think what you've been sharing today is very important and useful for the current situation. The thing I want to say about ethics that you're talking about here, ethics and arts-based and innovations, is that for me, I think there has to be the conversation between the technical necessities of what we do and the technical considerations. That needs to be in conversation with the ethical considerations. They need to go hand in hand. They both interact with the other. No. What we found in that research we did with the National Centre for Research.
Melanie, you are muted.
I don't know how that happens, sorry. What we found in the NCRM research around innovation was that often it was the desire to be more ethical that drove innovation, rather than innovation being a pressure point on ethics. It was ethics drove innovation, at the desire to be more considerate, to be more egalitarian, to hear that all voices are heard. These are ethical considerations, I think. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. But you see, there are so many articles talk about public versus private, and it seems that we are not yet in agreement which is public and which is private. Can you talk about this one, Melanie?
Yeah. I agree with you.
What do you consider public? What do you consider private?
I think there is always a grey area. As people today have pointed out, there is the very obviously public and the very obviously private. And then there is this grey, murky area in the middle that we try to work within. And I think the key thing that we have to ask ourselves when we're in that grey, murky area is, am I treating people with respect? You know, not is this a public domain? Is this a private domain? Is what I'm doing respectful and considerate of these people? Because that's the bottom line, isn't it? That's what it comes back to. And I think if we keep asking ourselves that question, the public-private dilemma becomes less of a knife edge, less of a cliff that we can fall off, if you like.
And thank you. So actually, it's still the same principles, only that these ethical principles should be heightened in our consciousness. Respect for people, justice, you know, and all these beneficence. Will this harm? Is this good, responsible ethics that we are doing? And also, actually, there are many questions here in the online which we do not have time to talk about. But since this is a conversation, we would like you to continue thinking about these big ethical moments. You know, we have this ethics in practice. So let's continue to engage in asking ourselves questions. And it's good that we are here together as researchers. Let's continue the connection and the conversation, because as of now, we don't have all the answers yet. So let's keep on talking to one another. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Sunia, and to our organizers in WCQR, and to my colleagues here, Dr. Safary and Dr. Pavel, and to everyone